It's your opportunity to ask questions of our esteemed panelists. I think we'll pick up where we left off on the idea of, innovation and also, that idea of tailoring your kitchens, bathrooms to your clients. Then we can talk about training and apprenticeships. Moving on then to the idea of AI, which I know is a really big topic. Elizabeth Pantling-Jones. Elizabeth is the Design and Marketing Director at Lima Kitchens.
Hiya.
Welcome, Elizabeth. Next up, we have got Luke Wedgbury, and Luke's got 25 years of industry experience, the owner and CEO of Colville Kitchens Limited. So he knows a thing or two about kitchens. And then over to Joanna Geddes. Joanna is Design Director at Kitchens by J.S. Geddes, and she's award-winning. You've got a lot of awards to your name, so she obviously knows what she's doing. Well done. And finally, we've got Graham Robinson. Graham is the current director, the design and showroom manager at Halcyon Interiors. Welcome, Graham. So if we're going to do this thing about inclusivity and amongst the older generation, for example, I think, maybe we'll come to you first, Elizabeth. This idea that actually, do they want to spend the money? Because your joints might seize up, your body is seizing up, but don't people's kind of desire to spend seize up as they get older? I mean, are people going to be splashing out on new kitchens, do you think?
Absolutely. I think for all of us here, we would say that 55 and over are the people who have the spare income to be able to invest, and they've potentially already done it once before, experienced the stress and the mistakes that they've already made once. And by coming to someone such as ourselves in the room, they have an expectation of being able to get professional advice and being able to advise them on how their investment can continue to work for them through the changing in age and physical capabilities is an important part of it.
Okay, that makes complete sense. How about for you, Graham? I mean, do you factor in inclusivity? How important is that within your business?
It's an individual thing, a kitchen, so if that client's going to get older or is old, then you just design it appropriately. So it's getting to know that client and getting to know what they actually want and learning from them and doing it right. 'Cause sometimes people say, this is the last time I'm going to do it. So it's quite a bit morbid, but it may be the last time. So do it right.
Because I imagine as well, there are some people who, you possibly have to tread quite carefully, because were you to suggest perhaps designing something for them in the next 10 years, they might get slightly offended if you said, you're not going to be able to bend down, love, so, let's just sort of, keep it all at eye level. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're going to shrink, so no, we need to factor that in as well.
But if you say it in the right way, you can. Yeah, you can say it in the right way.
Yeah.
If it's done with the right intention, then I think it will be met with the right response.
Yeah. Yes, that's why I'm not in this business. Oh, God. Yes, and Joanna, your view on inclusivity and how important it is, and also the market in that older generation.
I know we've been talking about inclusivity with the ageing population, but I think it's important to speak about inclusivity as a whole for the kitchen industry, because that's things that we come up against daily. For example, I've got a client at the moment who is partially sighted, and the inclusivity in terms of the appliances out there, it's very poor, actually. When I started looking at it, she needed an oven that's got really big buttons on it, it's maybe speaking to her, and to find one from a reputable supplier is very difficult, actually. So, yes, I'm just talking about someone partially sighted, but obviously there's many things, wheelchair use, it could be cultural differences as well that we need to think about inclusivity with. So I think with the ageing population, I think I'm probably quite lucky in a sense that most of my clients are quite old. So I've been used to an older generation of clients. And I think meeting their needs is becoming slightly easier actually with the help of suppliers. So the likes of Blum having access to different, like your space towers, these types of things. These are things now that not only the ageing population want, but everyone wants that. You know, it makes everyone's life a bit easier.
Yeah.
It's just it's a side note that it's for the ageing population.
But that's an interesting point, isn't it? This issue of diversity. So it's not just inclusivity. It's diversity. The idea of disabilities, for example. And I wonder, you know, whether that your industry has taken that perhaps seriously enough until now, because I think it's fair to say that these issues are really prominent and out there now for good positive reasons, and maybe more emphasis needs to be placed on that, or you need to be more aware of it.
I think sometimes, if I can be as bold to say, is the industry can do things as a token gesture, to say we're looking like we're doing something about it, but are we? I think certainly with new builds, which we're involved a lot in now, there are things that are, you know, for wheelchair users, you've got a turning circle and these types of things, but that's great, the wheelchair can turn, but you've made no assumption of how they're going to reach the wall units, or, you know, you've put nothing into place about that. So it's at times a half-hearted gesture
effort.
towards
I suppose
it.
you might not have actually the access to the goods, as you say. You're trying to find an oven with big buttons. I mean, you know, that's
Exactly. Yeah.
interesting. And a word from you, Luke, on what you've heard so far and your
Yeah,
view.
I think ultimately, in regards to manufacturers jumping on board and trying to offer more, if we're going to get real, if there's no profit in there, then they're not going to be interested. So they need to come up with some solution for that. Now, new builds is great because more legislation is coming in, more regulations. So when we do new build properties, we have to think about all these different things that make them more inclusive. But I think I really enjoyed the presentation from Blum, because what it got me thinking was my average age, and a lot of people's average age target market here is indeed 55 plus. And when we sell a kitchen to somebody who's 55 plus, let's be honest, we're selling it for life, right? We're not saying this is going to last you 10 years. We're saying this is going to see you out, this kitchen. So we can now start to think about what can we put into that design now. When you're 55 and you don't need it now, but I can build it into the design, because in 10, 15, 20, 30 years' time, you are probably going to use it, and this kitchen is going to last you that amount. So I think it's almost like an upsell. It's almost like, you know, this is...
Except aren't you doing yourself out of another kitchen when they turn 70?
Oh, well, yeah.
We
Maybe.
don't wanna do
but
that.
We'll jump off.
You don't
that
want to
bridge
make
when
it too good. Now, have any of you got any questions from the floor on inclusivity? And if you do, please raise your hands. We will come to you, thank you very much, with a handheld mic. And also you can submit questions via Slido if you don't want to speak. But do we have anything else that you would like to cover on this issue of inclusivity?
How many of you have got a defined space in your showroom that is designed for accessibility, inclusivity kitchens?
One, two.
We don't have a defined space, but we've got it throughout every kitchen. We've got something, because what we didn't want, say if we had like a wheelchair user, we didn't want them to come in and say, no, you can only look at that place for you. We wanted them to go throughout the whole of the showroom and they were included. So, you know, we have the eye.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think most of us could probably agree with that most of us have got things within our showroom that shows what we can do. And manufacturers, I think, are catching up really quickly. I know Symphony do some great work. They work with people, and they've got their own defined areas in their marketing suite. So that's accessible to me as a retailer. I can access that if I need to. So I think manufacturers are getting there.
But people don't want it to look like it's been altered or adapted. When we've done kitchens, that's the first thing, that they don't want it to look like an adapted kitchen.
Right.
They want it to look like every other kitchen with a tweak.
Okay.
And that could be a big tweak or a little tweak, and it's got to be appropriate to the customer. But you don't want you don't really want a separate area or like a segregation for anything, really.
Do you have inclusive displays in your showroom? You can answer yes, just one, yes, more than one, no, but plan to add in the next 12 months, no, and have no plans to. it looks like know and have no plans to is out there. I mean, there's no way the others can catch up with that. So, know and have no plans to, Luke.
I think it's ultimately in regards to the return on investment in the showroom. So if you have a showroom and you say, I'm going to dedicate 30% of that showroom specifically for this need, is that space going to earn its money?
Well, is it?
No.
No.
No, it's not. And I think that's the barrier. We would love to show what's available in maybe one display. That would be wonderful. But we have to look at how hard that display works for the business. And ultimately, it wouldn't work hard enough. So I think that's why that number's so high.
If the individual that you meet in the showroom can explain what they can and can have and adapt a kitchen, then I don't think it's a barrier not to have a display.
Right.
Mine's just with regards to whether or not you give over part of your showroom to accessible. 2.4 metres is all you need, because everything else within that kitchen is what most people would deem standard, from space towers to Le Mans to pull-out units with tabletops. But 2.4 is the section which I've given over to Horizon 4. So when you're looking at an accessible kitchen, you're not having to give over a massive amount. And I can still show that kitchen off to, multi-generational sort of clients, from young to old, because it suits younger kids. I can lower the worktops down. It can suit older people with bad backs that don't want to lean over, so I can raise it up. So it's not just for wheelchair users. It can be used for quite a wide breadth of clients.
I would probably say that, as independents, we always strive for our displays to be different and our showrooms to have a different feel and all those sensory things we were speaking about earlier. I think whenever I take your point, you're maybe not speaking about just exclusively wheelchair users, but using it as the example, if I ever have had wheelchair users buying kitchens from me, I think they've come to an independent firstly because they're looking for expertise that possibly they don't feel they're getting from the sheds. So, I do agree with you. I would like to see an area in a lot of studios that is designated as an accessible kitchen. But as Graham was saying earlier, the kitchen doesn't need to look like it's for a disabled person. So as you're walking around that studio, to the untrained eye, how are you even going to know that it is an accessible kitchen? It should just look as vibrant, as colourful, as design-led as any other kitchen. It just so happens that it can work for multi-generational or wheelchair users. So okay. Yeah, I agree.
There's a gentleman down.
I work for Symphony. I'm John, and we worked with Belinda at Kudos Living in order to put the multi-generational display in. I think one of the things we were talking about actually in the break was that there's a very big opportunity out there if you can just get it right and dedicate that small little bit of space. So for any retailers out there that maybe might be thinking about it, please come and have a chat with me. I'll be here tonight, and we do display deals, and we also we will install as well. So if there's any way we can help, there's a little plug for you.
Sold.
Rob Williamson from Symphony.
Hello, Rob.
Just had a chat with Simon, very impressed with today. For our Freedom range, designed by Adam Thomas, if you look up Adam Thomas on the internet, we'll do a special deal to any KBSA member who's not interfering with an existing display in stock. We'll do the display at less 90%, and we'll fully fit it and install it and everything for you.
I think for someone to be able to do that, they would need to be looking at quite a wide area to be servicing, to be able to keep it within the constraints of what we work to, which is about 20 to 25 miles. I don't think that would be hugely beneficial. And also it comes back to the point of trying to get a kitchen that people want to put on Instagram that still has all of those lights, because this is the world that we do now live in, and it not be overwhelmingly accessible. And accessibility goes far beyond wheelchair use and being able to get things out of the unit. It's the grip, it's lifting a kettle, it's being able to lift things out the oven. It's being able to involve children. We're not all only looking at older people. A lot of the work that we've done in the past is taken into consideration clients who have autistic children and the needs that they have for the kitchen and during the process as well, which is something that should be considered. And coming to specialist is what I think people expect us to be able to manage.
But I think it's still personal. Where we've done the kitchen, where we've done Corrie and worktop that are low down, so when they're on the wheelchair, they're smooth on their legs. We've done connectivity with the hood, so that the hood comes down on when the hob comes on because they can't reach the hood. Tap to the side of the sink. It's all little things that people can do to make a kitchen perfect for whoever it might be, whether they're in the wheelchair, whether they can't see, whether they're old, whether they're young.
In regards to, do we as retailers see it as a specialist thing? Do we take it on board and go, well, we're going to have a certain percentage of our clients who are going to want these needs and we need to cater for those? Or do we see it as a specialist thing that we kind of go, listen, I understand where your needs are. We can't quite deliver that in a specialist way we'd like to, but we can recommend this company. I don't know what the panel feel about that. That's certainly, it's a discussion, right?
You can recommend me, look, if you want.
Yeah,
I'll
me.
if you're not going to do it.
I believe that there are specialists. So my aunt had her kitchen changed with MS, lifetime in a wheelchair, and she had a specific company come in to do that. I think they are out there. They're just perhaps not as visible to the able-bodied market.
We've got a question, which, again, Joanna, maybe you would be able to answer, which is, which brands do you find are the best for accessible kitchens?
I find that really difficult to answer, if I'm honest, because I find that every time there's been a disability presented to me, it's been a different disability.
Right.
And I think there's not an umbrella where one brand will work for everything. When I was looking for an induction hob for this partially sighted person, found a brand called Ugo. I never heard of it, so then I think, well, for me, is that good of me as a retailer to promote a brand that I don't know? I don't know their servicing, I don't know how good the appliance is. So me personally, I wouldn't say there's a specific appliance brand out there that I'm overly keen on, but what I would say is that most of our furniture manufacturers have systems in place for certain types of disabilities.
It's interesting, yeah, so there's obviously some way to go there in terms of that market. A gentleman, yes, there are a couple. Richard, where are you?
What are some of the key specifications or features that you think customers would look for or are asking for? Maybe they don't exist yet, but what are people actually asking for by way of actual inclusive features?
I think knobs on ovens. People want a knob on an oven now, rather than touch. That doesn't mean if you're disabled or old. Young people want knobs on ovens as well. So.
It's funny, isn't it? It is funny. It's that feeling of, well, I suppose it's a multi-sensory.
Be careful what you say.
Yes, I've just realised. We had hot and horny at the beginning, we've now got knobs at the end. No, but it's a multi-sensory thing.
Yeah.
You feel that you have more control with a knob than you do with a push button. Quite a few, but actually, who would prefer not a knob on an oven? Similar, actually, isn't it?
I think a good point is also the very few that we've done, safety is the top thing. Is the appliance going to be safe? That's what people want to know. So what specifically is different about this appliance that makes it safe? What's different about this oven that makes it safe compared to that oven? What's different about that hob that makes it safe compared to that hob? So safety is quite high on people's list when it comes to a brief on these kind of projects.
Not to mention a brand, but Neff hide and slide oven's a good one because the door's out of the way when they're in the wheelchair.
And the telescopic shelf.
Yeah.
Telescopic shelf.
Telescopic runner.
And yes, actually, just to go back to that gentleman's question, so we did knobs and knockers and whatever, but what else is there, would you say, that perhaps, people would...
Don't have a instant boiling water tap, maybe a cooker, so you're not holding a kettle, not pouring a kettle, you've got instant boiling water.
Mm-hmm. Joanna?
I just think simpler appliances. I think we have lost simplicity a wee bit. We're just striving to be different from each brand. And we've got a lot of functions on there that people do not value.
Yeah.
And when we do our appliance demonstrations, there's always a new function, and I'm thinking, what the heck are we using that for? You know, I'm having to relate it to something, so I think simplicity.
Yeah. Richard?
One of the things we might find is, when I use my ovens now, is it used to be very difficult to use the oven itself to set something to come on or a special function. But I won't say the brand, but I use it on my phone or an iPad, especially if you're in a wheelchair or something like that. Sitting there is so easy on that function now, and that's come in through Wi-Fi enabled appliances.
Well, what is that brand?
Well, mine is Siemens, and
Right.
the latest Siemens, it's so easy. I can go boom, 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 it's in, the oven's on, you know. And so it just creates, actually, I don't even need to go to my oven to turn it on. So that's one of the functions that
But you
I
need to
like.
go to the oven to
put
put
the
the
food
thing
in.
into
Well,
the
I
oven.
know that. You know,
Well,
depending
you
on-
won't have to soon, because obviously something else will be doing it
Yeah.
for you. Yeah, no, don't worry about putting anything in the oven. Right, I think we've probably done enough on inclusivity and innovation. So let's go to training and education. And I have to say, I'm really surprised that there are so few of you that have taken on apprentices. And I mean, I understand that clearly the government doesn't make it very easy. But I mean, do you think, Elizabeth, that the industry, there is an argument for the industry to take apprenticeships more seriously, to use apprenticeships? And what do you think is the reservation? What is your reservation?
So we do have an apprentice, and before I say everything I'm going to say, I really want to be an advocate for this, but I don't think that we're at a point that I feel that I can be. So there have been a lot of reasonings in the past as to why apprenticeships haven't been taken off, and for us to kind of take apprentices on. And I find it really frustrating because the reasons that are given just wouldn't be acceptable in a business and in the way that we've all been setting up and operating, why these things aren't applied to the apprenticeship role.
Give us some examples. So,
Accessibility. So I have tried year after year to get onto some of the apprenticeships and not had phone calls back. And I think that if you can't even get the core contact right, how can you blame the industry for a lack of uptake? How can you take on an apprenticeship and for us be nearly 2 years down the line, having been told this person's going to be passing with a distinction, which is great, and I'm really, really pleased for him, but I have no idea what the competencies are. I have no idea what another person on that course has learnt. There isn't any guidance, there is a sheer lack of communication, and yeah, for me, as an employer of 6 people in their 20s, that one apprenticeship isn't bringing anything more to the table than what I'm already getting from the younger employees that I have.
but you don't feel some sense of duty, I suppose, to to nurture much younger talent. And also, the point was made that in the future we will presumably need that. I mean, we need more people in the...
I'm a big advocate for supporting young people. Out of 10 of us, 2 of us are directors, 6 of them are in their 20s. We are doing that, and we are finding it easier and more effective doing that without the apprenticeship. And we know the guidance that is being given, and we understand what's happening. We're not getting emails. I've had a message to say today, oh, by the way, I've got an assessment on Friday. I've already planned the work, and this is someone who is now at a point who should be taking on their own installations and be free to kind of do the job and kind of start making us a profit on the investment that we've already made. He's been trained with a subcontractor at our cost because we want to change the way that our business is going to grow. And we need to see that. We need to see something back.
Points well made. Joanna, for you, apprenticeships, yes, no?
So I think when we talk about apprenticeships, we're always very inclined to speak about young people, whereas I think there's a great opportunity missed for adult apprenticeships.
Okay, well, apprenticeships of
yeah, in
any age.
general, yeah. I think I totally agree with Elizabeth in that the investment of time in a small business into an apprenticeship is a worrying step at times to take when you don't know if you're going to be able to retain that employee at the end of it. Now, training, we train everyone that comes into our business, whether they're an apprentice or not. But I think there's so much more heavily timed investment, monetary and time, that if you lose that apprenticeship after 4 years, that's a worrying thing for, and a hole left actually a bit in a small business. If we continue to keep doing that, there's a massive investment and outlay. But on the flip side of that, I do see it's going to be a real issue in years to come that we don't have skilled tradespeople. I find that even tricky at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Luke, where do you stand on apprenticeships?
God, how long have we
also
got? I might have to stand up and start doing a whole presentation, because it's just, I feel so passionate about this, because as business owners, and let's call us business owners for a second in regards to retailers, we are under so much pressure anyway. Regardless of, I've had conversations at this conference with people who are turning over 200,000, some people are turning over 4 million. It doesn't really matter, it's irrelevant. We're still at some point having to buy the tea bags and the loo roll and all the rest of it and all that kind of stuff. We're business owners, right? And as an industry, yes, we do have to step up, but all of the pressure is on us. So on top of all the things that we have to do, the industry as a whole now says, everything that you've been doing is great, but you need an apprentice now. And we go, blimey, okay, so we need an apprentice too. Yes, you need an apprentice because the industry is suffering, so it's all on you. You have to go and get an apprentice. So we kind of go as an industry, okay, where do we go? And then everyone just stops, because there is nowhere to go. It's not easy. It's, I mean, poor old Barry is really flying the flag.
He does try and bang the drum,
yeah,
doesn't
absolutely.
he, Barry?
Yeah, he's doing a great job, and you know, it's difficult, but it is frustrating. It's very frustrating, because I had a really good conversation with Barry earlier, actually, about trying to focus on outcomes, and maybe we need more success stories. We need more people to come forward and say, we had an apprentice. And this is what he or she did, and now look at them.
The problem is, I don't think many people have ever had an apprentice, so there can't be any stories about how good or...
So I've got 2 businesses. In my first business, Colville Kitchens, we have an apprentice. He's now 2.5 years in. A few of you might have seen young Kyle on LinkedIn. He's great. He's one of our installers, and he's doing really well. And then we have a second business. We have a Cutting House franchise. And we employed a junior CAD technician 18 months ago, Georgia, and now she's gone through the ranks and she's now a branch manager. So she's really flew through.
So your experience has been very positive then.
It's very
so
positive.
Take on more.
Yeah, but I've done it differently. So I didn't go to a training provider or an apprenticeship provider. I just went, I want somebody young, and I'm going to bring them into the business and I'm going to train them that way.
Okay.
So I found that quite easy.
Right. Elizabeth, do you feel... sorry, no, actually, we've had your view, haven't we, on apprentices? Graham?
We've probably done the same, taken someone into the business and trained them up.
That way, rather than going through the government bureaucracy.
And then hang on to them.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, questions from the audience. Do we have any questions you'd like to raise on apprenticeships, whether you'd like to participate, but it's just made extremely difficult for you? Whether you're happy as you are? Yes, there's...
It was just a question for, was it Andy who done the apprenticeship?
Barry. Sorry?
Barry. What is the difference? We've done the same. We've brought on our own fitters and trained them ourselves with our own fitters. We've not went down the apprenticeship route. Why would we go down the apprenticeship route? What would be the benefit?
That's a good point.
Barry's going
of going through the very unwieldy apprenticeship programme.
So first off, I totally agree with everything that everybody said. It's not easy, it's complicated, it's challenging. If everybody was doing what you guys are doing and bringing in new, diverse talent into the industry, we wouldn't need apprenticeships, but they're not. The benefit of bringing someone in on an apprenticeship is some of the stuff we talked about this morning, that support, that they get throughout that process, and the training that they get is what you're doing, yeah. So they get that work-based learning from you, but it's standardised to the industry, which is beyond what you do. So we train AI as part of our core content. We train retrofit as part of our core content. We train modern methods of construction as part of our core content. What they learn with you is how to deal with your business and your customers, your product. What they learn, so that's the job, but what they learn is about the industry. That's the bit that's missing.
Sorry, so that's the advantage you're claiming in taking on apprenticeships, that they get some broader perspective.
They get, it's an industry standard
Elizabeth's
training.
looking a bit nonplussed, stroke flabbergasted, stroke.
So I have been told this comes down to the provider that you
100%.
get, but at no point have us as employers been told what that standard is. And I've gone to multiple places to understand what that standard is. I still have no idea. So someone could come to me and say, I've done this, and I'll have a certain expectation. But that expectation may or may not be accurate.
So part of the funding rules, so the rules that I have to adhere to deliver that standard, a design technician standard, is that you as the employer have to agree that the standard that learner's going on is correct. So if you're doing an apprenticeship with a provider that hasn't done that, they're not doing their job.
So how do you therefore correct it? How do you vet your provider? How do you correct the issues that you then have?
By jumping up on stage and talking about apprenticeships and saying, come and talk to me.
I think you need to go and have another chat with Mr. Apprenticeship Blokey and the government, because, I mean, this is a complete dog's dinner. I mean,
100%.
You know, and I'm sorry, Barry, you are a lovely, lovely man, but you're having to sell something that, you know, just isn't working for these guys as much as they would love it to be able to. And so actually,
I don't
it's
disagree.
the government that's letting down these young people, not the people in this audience.
No, well, it's opportunity. That there are, so one organisation I work with, when they put an advert out for an apprenticeship, they get 22 applicants on average for every apprenticeship they put out there. So 21 people are not getting a job as an apprentice. There aren't enough jobs out there. No one's giving people opportunity for those. So no one's advertising a job as an apprentice. That's the challenge that we have. And this is the most incredible industry in the world.
Probably because they've tried to navigate this system before that doesn't work. And so they just think, well,
employers,
no, we're not doing that.
Employers have got the rough end of this, you're right. It's all put on you. What you just said was spot on.
It's all very well and good with the apprenticeships, but when I sent one of our apprentices to college, he came back and told me he knew how to fit a PVC window. I'm not interested in that. That is of no value to me at all.
Yeah.
So it's all very well that that we're not shouting about it and we're not sending people to the courses. But see if the courses are not tailor-made to our industry, we're wasting time, we're wasting resources, and sending these young people there not to give us enough back for the money that we're investing. So there's need these tailor-made courses, apprenticeships, or like you said, in-house apprenticeships. They need to be more tailor-made to
college. A college will only train what they can sell locally. So that's it. So if it's a installer, they'll do a plumbing course. But an installer needs to be a plumber, they need to be an electrician, they need to be a carpenter, they need to be a painter, decorator and plasterer. All these things they need to be. So colleges will only train what they want to train. Providers are meant to deliver work-based learning. If you send them to college, they're going to learn college stuff. If they train with you, that's why I said earlier on, you guys are the experts. If you know what you want, train the people to do what you want them to do and do it through the guise of an apprenticeship. That's the route to go down. Or don't do apprenticeships. This is controversial. Don't do apprenticeships. But if all of you take on a new person into your industry that's never worked in this industry, if everybody in this room did it today and did it every year from now to 2030, we wouldn't have an issue.
How much does it cost to have an apprentice, would you say, Elizabeth?
I did do this calculation. I now wish I'd looked back on. Remembered it.
I'm getting old.
I do know the
Yeah,
answer.
tell me about it. So one of the things you need to consider is how old is the apprentice, because the incentives vary depending on age. Also restrictions around how long or if you can use the apprenticeship salary are involved. You then potentially have your provider's fees. If you're discussing installers, you then have tool setup, safety gear, and your PAYE on top of that. You could easily be mounting up to 50,000 in your first year, which I don't think people really kind of
50
consider.
grand for an apprentice.
If you, by the time you've got all of the equipment, a full-time salary, PAYE, pension contributions, this is, you've got those if you take on an employee anyway. And it comes back to if that isn't being, if you're not getting the feedback and not getting the information and not getting something solid, why would you make a marginally different investment and have someone out of the business potentially at short notice along that as well?
And I think it's a good point, because from a monetary value, that's just the measurable part. Because if you have an apprentice come into your business, and let's say they're a designer, the idea is, Barry and I have spoken about this, that they're going to shadow one of your designers, right? And that's going to slow your designer down, and that's going to cost your business money. And it's the same with with employed installers. You say to an employed installer who's on your books, right, this is Michael, he's now going to shadow you. I need you to train him up. You've got 2 years, because in 2 years' time, I need him to be able to fit a kitchen. And that installer is going to go, crying out loud, but you want this kitchen done in a week, and I've got to train this guy as well. So there's the things you can't measure. Having an apprentice has a big ripple effect on your business. It costs a lot of money.
It's the cost of mistakes as well. And if you've got a designer, you have to accept if someone's coming on initially, you are probably going to lose more leads than if an experienced designer did it initially as well. And it's something you have to accept, and again, isn't measurable.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if it could be double.
Yeah.
And my question would be, what's the alternative?
Just employing people and investing in youth, and we're in a room full of people who are passionate about the industry and their businesses, and the hope is that they do just employ new talent, fresh ideas, think, okay, I might not know about AI or the new trends or something, I need to be challenged and I need to bring people on board who will do that.
Right, let's do a quick poll on this, the Sligo poll, so if you don't mind grabbing your phones. So the question is, do you employ any apprentices? Yes, just one. Yes, more than one. No, but I have plans to in the next 12 months. Probably not, by what you've just heard. No, and have no plans to. So if you could please get your phones out and respond to that. We'll just take a little... well, what a surprise. Well, I mean, I think it's fairly... Sorry, Barry. Sorry. You need to go and knock on number 10's door quite loudly. And yeah, sorry to all the apprentices. No, and have no plans to. Way out in front on 59%. Right, let's move on to our what I know is a very hot topic at the moment, AI. And I know that quite a lot of our panel have views on AI. And Graham, I'm going to come to you first, because it seems like AI is something that we cannot turn our back on. We can't ignore it. We have to be brave, and I include myself in this, and we have to try it and see what it does, and maybe even at some point it may be worth using.
About a week ago, I was quite a sceptic about it. I'm still a bit of a sceptic about it, because I like that human contact and that personal touch. So on your table is a poem that AI wrote about the KBSA Conference. But it wrote the poem. It's a nice enough poem. There's a few little flaws in it, but it wouldn't print it on blue paper and then wrap it with orange ribbon to match what I'm wearing.
So just to clarify, on your table you have got blue paper with a little orange
that's a poem.
ribbon.
AI wrote it
this
for me.
is AI's poem from Graham.
But
Love from Graham.
From Graham, presented by Graham. But I presented it on blue paper and orange because I was going to wear blue and orange. But AI is not going to give you that personal interaction with a client.
It's not going to match your outfit.
No. So, and I think it's important that use it.
Shoddy.
Use the bits that are good, but don't lose that personal contact.
Okay. So what's wrong with the poem?
Faucets rather than taps. And it implies that there's loads of stuff on display here because it's just taken, I don't know how it works, but it's taken information from out there and written it into a poem.
That's because you didn't ask the right question.
Possibly, but
Graham, you've got to ask the right question.
I didn't actually ask the question, someone did it for me. But
I don't, honestly, we need lessons in how to ask the right questions.
But it was only a week ago that I actually started thinking about this, if I'm being honest, about a week ago that I really thought about it in detail, and someone volunteered to find out about it for me, and then sent me the poem. And I thought, I read the poem, and I quite liked the poem, and I printed the poem.
Right, okay, I'm going to ask you a question, Graham. Have you actually Googled an AI site? Have you actually seen an AI site? Have you seen?
I have, yes.
Right.
I got...
Or did you get someone else to have a look for you?
No, I have looked.
Okay.
But I think, and what I've seen today...
For how long?
A couple of hours.
Okay.
But I think the key is asking the right questions, but asking the right questions is also the key. AI or not AI, asking the right questions and talking to a customer is also the way forward. And if people aren't asking the right questions, whether they're asking it to a human or a computer, that's the key.
That is the key. Okay. Joanna, multi-award winning Joanna, award winning for your designs, right? Are you worried that you're going to be usurped, knocked off your perch by, like something with no arms and no legs and no head and no tummy and nothing but a sort of computer chip thing? I don't know what AI looks like.
It's a really long question there.
Well, basically, are you worried about AI and is it going to take your job?
Is it going to take my job right now? No. Does it have the potential to take my job in the future? Shush, my question.
Shush, Graham.
Right, so I understand why lots of people would say, oh, no, absolutely, it couldn't take your job and that's the end of it. I think at the lower end of the kitchen market, it could take those jobs because people are looking for standard solutions. They're looking for an L shape, they're looking for an island. They are very basic in maybe their aspirations. I think at our end of the industry, I think there has to be an embracement on hybrid style. So I see it being a helpful tool during design. So when I've got a lot on and there's a lot of leads to deal with, there can be helpful aspects of it. But am I going to sell a kitchen that's been generated by AI? I'd probably say no. And the reasons I think no are that human connection, as you said. So even during COVID, when you couldn't speak with someone direct, you were on Zoom, you missed that eye contact, you missed picking up the body language. AI can't do that for you. It can't replicate human emotion, human feeling, sounds, smells, tastes. It can't do that. So how it's going to be able to interpret how designers think and feel, I'm not sure. And on when you were talking about awards, there's a concept award there, and I think there's 5. I don't know how many went in for that award, but say there was only 5, there was one brief given, and there is 5 completely different designs. There's 5 completely different colours, there's 5 completely different interpretations of that. Now, AI will only have the capacity at some point to have a ceiling. So it will only be able to do 500 designs. And I know that's I thought that was a more of a lot, but that's a lot of designs. But 490 of them might be absolutely useless to one specific client. So
I think that's the thing, isn't it? The inventors of AI, when they were warning of its potential dangers and how it could be abused, were saying, human beings can work with it, but work with it wisely. And that's the thing. I guess there's always this fear that we have, people looking over their shoulder thinking, well, but they're doing that and they're doing that. But actually it's to maintain your own vision and your own conviction of where you're going. Presumably that's what you've all done, otherwise you wouldn't have a business. Rather than worrying about what everybody else is doing around you, but the need to embrace AI is there.
I think it will be difficult because as independents, we spoke earlier about investment into things. To invest into software that is going to connect to your suppliers. So just off the top of my head, with BSH, with, you know, Cooker, with Callerton are here. Are these suppliers going to have the facility that AI will be connected to a software package that we have? Does then that software package read the panels that are required, and then there's a lot of complexity, and because we're dealing with niche products at times, to be able to have the facility to do that, I think is a bit off at the moment. I don't think it's like next year, but it is coming.
Yeah.
You know, I'm old enough to remember when CAD design was, we talked about CAD design like it's AI. Like, oh God, what? No, I can sell a kitchen on the back of a fag packet. I don't need CAD. And there was a lot of pushback then. And I think we can choose to bury our head in the sand and just carry on, or we can choose to embrace the technology that's available and build it into our business the way we want to be built. And ultimately, it comes down to what's seen as normal within the world. So I think...
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, so
if anyone's got an idea what normal is, please do let me know.
Yeah, I think our generation, we're okay in regards to, is my business going to be affected by AI from the perspective of we're still going to be there in 20 years? Yes, I think we are.
We need to learn to work with everything that's already been said. I'm completely behind. But at the same time, we already have clients out there who are going to national companies who I think are the people who are going to be getting rid of their salespeople for a generated design, not happy, or using online tools already and not understanding the products that are actually available for their needs, and going back to the accessibility, how can they achieve that in the way that is suitable for them, and we just add that value, and that's all we need to do, is to continue to evolve and remain relevant and add value and experience. And then the whole sensory thing, yes, you can order samples, but people do still get a different feel from seeing something on scale too.
I was at the London Design Fair on the weekend, and there was two designers who are very famous. They do wallpapers and fabrics and everything else, and they were talking about exactly this. Their whole speech was on it, and they were saying you shouldn't see it as a threat. You know, they described how they used AI to mechanise the process, and they were showing their the products that they used used it for, and it was brilliant. And I think go back to what you were saying about the way people are going to buy kitchens in the future. Maybe it's for people like a winner to use the AI within the system to benefit us. So maybe working together with people like CompuSoft. They're not called that anymore, are they? But yeah, I think maybe that's a way you could really, really mechanise AI.
I think this is a real opportunity for us to design. Because I think when there's two things I think in the sector. There's what I call kitchen planners, which are people that literally put boxes on wall, they follow standard structures, and I think that's a great place for AI to do the standard. And I think the opportunity we have in industry, and this is, we've got all the award winners around us here. I know we don't know who's won yet, but anybody that's on this wall has won an award today, I think, personally. And this is the start of an accolade that the opportunity we have as design professionals to bring something exceptional into the marketplace that nobody else can do, no machine can do. And I absolutely agree with Graham, the whole personality that we bring. I mean, look at his suit, it's lovely. The personality that we bring, and people buy from people buy from the emotion of what they do. They're not just buying a box on the wall, which can be created and can be done well. I think it's a great opportunity for us, but we have to grow and develop. And just as a side, interesting, we talked about training. We never touched on anything other than apprenticeships. And I think there has to be, as a rule, I think a dearth of really high quality development and training within the industry right now to really take up us as a profession and take us to a place where we're exceptional about what we do.
But I just want to say something about it. I'm a designer, so I've got skin in the game. And when it comes to AI, we say what we need to do is be exceptional. However, we've seen plenty of examples online of AI copying artists' work, copying very how do you say the word? Okay. Yes, copying the characteristic of certain artist or designer, and we have no guarantee that that's not going to happen to us. You can have GDP, the version for kitchen design, design a kitchen, an accessible kitchen in the style of Lima kitchens, for instance. And that could produce images. And in the end, it could produce 499 pictures, but all it takes is one to sell. And in the end, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about earning money
Sales,
with our designs. Yeah. This is how all these businesses run. So how would, okay, it's not ready yet, but it might be ready in a year, you said, because it's so fast. So where does that leave us?
Right, I think Elizabeth wants to jump.
If we take our portfolio, that's out online. You know that our work is out there, every project out there. So that's going to be really easy for someone to do. But that's also easy for someone at Rent to do, someone down at the next competitor to do. That's information that we're not holding close to our chests. But what AI isn't necessarily going to know is the technology and the reasoning and what's behind those doors, yeah. And this is why we do face-to-face presentations in a showroom where you can physically see things, because an image doesn't tell you everything, and that's what you have to continue to try to get across to people. So yes, you can get this pretty picture, but is it going to be functional? Or is it going to be something that you're going to really regret having just invested 40 grand in?
Yeah, that's the thing, though. That there's no knowledge that's a secret anymore, really, is there?
Nothing's a secret.
Nothing's a secret. Nothing's a secret. No, and there's no secret in that we're running out of time. I just want to ask, before we wrap, a last question of all of you. I didn't ask you beforehand, so it's a bit, you can have a 30-second, no, 2 seconds, think about it. But what is your takeaway, each one of you, from what you've heard today in terms of a priority or something that you believe is really key to moving your business forward in the coming year? Luke?
I really enjoyed Andy's presentation on wellness in the workplace, especially for staff and for yourself. It's great every now and then just have a bit of a circuit breaker and come to a conference like this and kind of reflect and look back at your business and the practices and the things that you do. So I really enjoyed that, and that's something I'll definitely take away.
Brilliant. Joanna?
I like talking about the training and development aspects of things, because I think it's so important in the industry that we have people that are going to carry on the independence, you know, that we're not just going to be a dying breed of mums and dads and children that end up dying out. We've got no independence left, and I think we've got to keep training young people. I think we've got to keep training existing staff is super important, so that we are, every time when we're coming up against the sheds, we're winning, because we're so much better trained, we're so much more knowledgeable, and our designs are so much better. So, yeah.
So maybe as well, that's something that KBSA can help with too, and take on board as a mission.
Can you?
Richard? Graham?
I would say the wellness aspect of like looking after yourself so that you can look after others. So, and I'm guilty of it, and so it made me think. I didn't have my dessert at lunchtime.
Oh no.
So yeah, it has made me think. So that was what I would take away from it.
It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes the most obvious things, like looking after yourself, to be able to look after other people, are the things that we can't see, especially when it involves ourselves.
But it's also good that when you get to 50, you lose weight. That's a good point.
Although when you stop drinking, as in my case, you put it all back on. So I don't really know the answer to that. Stopping drinking is good, but being fat's not either. Anyway, Elizabeth.
I think that personally, for where we are, we've had a lot of growth, and we've blitzed our showroom. So just taking back some of the training things and going back to the sensory things to make our showroom stand apart from some of the other companies locally. So making sure that it is an experience that pulls our clients in and our staff as well, keeps it interesting, and just be able to work and grow with them.
Lovely. Well, thank you all very much indeed for kindly agreeing to be on our panel today, and thank you all very much indeed for your input. That's been great. Really, really appreciate it. Obviously, there's plenty of time to talk to everybody after we leave this room, and you are free. And that's about it from me, but I'd like to hand over to Richard to say a few final words. Richard, would you like to come and do your bit?
Thank you. It's almost time to get spruced up for this evening, but can I just remind all the shortlisted designers and the sponsors of the awards to be back here for 6 o'clock for photographs. The awards are hosted by Russell Kane, as you know, and they'll begin at 7:30 this evening with a drinks reception from 6:30. And I just want to say a big thank you for your participation today. It's been a fantastic day, and I just want to leave you with, we are better together.